The Brit Vlog.
9 cat approved.
On one of our trips to Legoland with my oldest grandson, Aidan.
This is Tony, by the way.
Yeah, Aidan. On coming back on the train, one of my workmate friends got in. That was Derek Smitherman. And we got talking, and he asked me, was it very dear to go to Legoland? And I said yes. But Aidan disagreed, because he said, when you paid in the morning, you can go in all day. And then if you want to come out to your car at, say, lunchtime, you come out, they put a stamp on your arm, and you sit in your car and have a rest, and that's it. And the other thing was that, whenever I see Derek now, he always asks me about Aidan. So I said, well, you wouldn't recognise him now, I said. But that's it. So what else do you want?
That one, that was me. And then what happened on the train with my lunch?
The first ever time.
Oh yes. Oh, the first time. The first time that I ever took Aidan on the train, I decided just to take him off for a ride to Cardiff. So I discussed it with Nan, and she said, "Yeah, that'd be a good idea." So we got on the train to go to Cardiff, and when we got down to near Chepstow, the train came to a stand, owing to the fact that there were signalling problems. And one thing in those days, that if the train stopped more than an hour, they would bring round refreshments. So we was there more than an hour, and the refreshments come along. So the attendant asked Aidan what he would like. I can't quite remember what he had, and that was it. So I knew that eventually we went off on the train to Cardiff, and now look round Cardiff and come back again. So the next time I take him on a train, I don't know where we were going, but he suddenly said, are we going to have some refreshments? And I had to explain to him that we had refreshments because the train stopped. And that was it.
I wanted refreshments every time. I thought a train meant refreshments.
Oh, he did. As soon as we got on the train, I've been on the train long, he said, where's the refreshments then? You were only about 8, weren't you? 7 or 8.
Always thinking I'm about leaving then.
Another thing about Aidan in his younger days, and lots of people say why I call him Master, because he did seem to be able to master things. One of the things we had trouble with was our video recorder, and he put it right. And we used to, I had a video of the Settling Carlisle Railway, and he used to like to put that on because he wanted to go to where the signal box was, and when the train went by, the signal would put the levers back. And he always used to say, "Can I have the piece where the signal puts the levers back?" So we had to run the video on to find this piece of with these signal levers. So that was it. So that's why I called him Master, because he even at that age he seemed to be able to do our video in that light.
What about when you took me to the Science Museum in London?
Oh yes, I decided to take him to when my friend Darryl. Unfortunately, Darryl's passed away now. So we went to the Science Museum. We was in one section where there were some working models, and there was about 10 boys there, a lot older than Aidan, trying to do something. And he said, "You don't do it like that, you do it like this." And he pushed them all aside and got the thing working, and that was it. And of course the next thing he wanted was a toilet.
It was a green corkscrew. So you had to rotate the corkscrew to get the grain.
So then we sent him to Aidan and said to me, he said, "What do you have?" He said, "Your grandson's all about it." I said, "Oh wow." I said, he's all about it. Yeah, so that was our visit to another visit we went to HMS Belfast. That's the ship on there's parked on the Thames by London Bridge, and you can go all over it. And where did Aidan want to sit? In the captain's seat. He didn't want to look at anything else. When I took his younger brother, he wanted to look at all the things like where the cookhouse was and where the cells was and the guns was, but not Aidan. He wanted to sit in the captain's seat, and he was sat there as though he was the captain of the HMS Belfast.
That sounds about right, doesn't it, Pete?
That sounds about right.
I was born in Emmerdale Road, and my old father died. He died in the April, and I was born in the June. And my mother I was born in Emmerdale Road at Gloucester at Granny Arnold's. That was my dad's mother. So I always called her Granny Arnold. and she lived there, but and then later on when she got older, her daughter and husband went to live. That was Uncle Bill and Auntie Hilda. And I always remember one day I was doing the railway gates at Lantoni, and when I used to go there, the chap in charge would say, "Go and see your gran if you want." And I always used to go down and see gran. And when I got down one day, there was a new chair by her old chair.
New chair?
A new chair parked by her old chair where she's sitting. So I said, "What's this then, Granny?" She said, "Oh, they think it's time I had a new chair." Our Hilda, and they went out and brought me this thing, and that's what I've had. Well, I said, "Surely you can try it and see what it's like." Well, I don't know. So anyway, the next time I went there, what was Granny Arnold doing? Sitting in the new chair. So I said, "Where's the old chair?" She said, "Oh, I don't know what Bill's done with that," she said. So that was the story of the chair. So later on we lived in a cottage for a time. Anyway, to cut a long story short, I had a stepfather. He was the chauffeur for the vicar at Brockworth Church. He'd come out and he'd been a full-time soldier in the army, in the Royal Army Service Corps, and he was a warrant officer when he left. And he was the first man in the army to ride a motorbike. And then, of course, and he was my stepfather from when I was about 3. So my mother then used to put on everything to do with me. His name was Stowe. My name was the real name was Goddard. So all through my life now, I was Stowe. I started on the railway in 1946 as Anthony Stowe. So anyway, when I went on my conscription, as when you was 18, you automatically had to go in the forces as a conscript. When I came back, the chief clerk in the office said, "Oh," he said, "the head office at Red has never had sight of your birth certificate." I said, "Oh, wow, what's that?" So he said, "Could you bring it in and I'll send it up?" So when we got it out, it said Anthony Frank Goddard. And they was calling me Stowe. So I took it in and he seen it. He said, "What's all this?" I said, "Well," I explained to him roughly that I had a stepfather. Anyway, they sent it up to Reading, to the head office, and they sent a letter back to me to say that if I wanted to be Stowe, then I'd have to get this birth certificate changed. So I took it home and I said to my stepfather, I said, "What do you think?" Well, he said, "Really," he said, you are, we were silly really, we should have called you Goddard, but of course, in them days, it was easier to call me Stowe because that was me mum and dad. So anyway, I had to go back to work and I said, "Look, I'm going to go back to my original name, is Goddard."
Change my name.
So I changed my name, so everything had to be changed and everything. So, but the most funniest thing was that if I worked with the signal gang, there was a gang, there was about 12 of us, the ganger made the Sunday sheet out to put the times on, and he always used to say to me, "And what are you this week, Goddard or Stowe?" and then not so many years ago, I bumped into one of my old workmates, Bumper Humphreys, and he said to the chat with him, he said, "Here's that bloke." He said, "Didn't know whether he was Goddard or Stowe. I was telling you about him the other day." I said, "You ain't still talking about me, Bumper, are you?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "I was telling my best friend," he said, "that about this business," and he laughed. Everybody laughed. Anyway, that was that story.
Have you told you about the incendiary bombs at Brockworth?
Oh, no.
When you used to put the bombs, what they used to drop at Brockworth with your dad? The bomb, they used to come over, the Germans.
Yeah.
We'll have a remember, then we'll come back. So bombs, what's that all about?
No, forget all about that.
Oh, no, I'm something else.
In my younger days, I was about 6. My mother and father decided to take on a public house. So they took on a public house at Lydney, the Railway Inn. And that's when I first really got interested in railways, because it was right by the level crossing, and the drivers used to come in and have a drink and all that business. And of course I was very privileged. They took me rides on the engine and all that sort of thing. Then and they decided to have another pub, and we went to Cinderford, the Railway Hotel, and the station was opposite, and that was the same there. And then I don't know why they kept going to changing pubs. I've no answer to that. We went to Colford, That's in the Forestine as well. That was 1938, and that's when the war was started. And my stepfather, they notified him that they would be calling him up again, as he was a trained, they called him reservist. So my mother said, she said, if you were a reservist, you got to go in. I'm not stepping into this pub on your own. So then it was all decided that we were going to live with my mother's sister's Auntie Dally at Brockworth. So anyway, we moved out of the pub and went to Brockworth, and we never he never got caught up as a reservist. Anyway, they had the chance of having a off licence at Stroud. So after we left Auntie Nell's and went to Stroud and had this off licence at Stroud. And then we went back to something happened again. We went back to Auntie Nell's, and my mother was caught up for war work, and she was in the aircraft factory making Sterling bombers, and my stepfather was in the stores until the war was over. And then we bought a house down in Gloucester, Seaver Street, which is opposite King's Road Rugby Ground. And my mother worked at the laundry, and my dad still worked at the aircraft till he retired. Anyway, by that time I'd met Margaret, and we got married, and I was taken very ill. I had a very rare disease. I spent 13 weeks in Gloucester Infirmary, and while I was in there, the specialist said, Gloucester's not a very healthy county. She said, where do you work? I said, on the railway. Oh, right, she said. And anyway, I eventually got better and went back to work. The chief clerk said, you don't work here anymore. I said, why, what's the matter then? He said, with the medical officer at Paddens, we've had to move you to Cornwall for your health. And that's how I went to Newquay. So we went to Newquay, and I went down before and got some lodgings. And all the local permanent wage, that's the man that mends the track, Reg Knight, he said, you from up country, because that's what they call people in Cornwall. When you come from up country, they call you up country people. And he said, you don't think of buying a house in Newquay, do you? Well, I said, I was going to. Well, he said, it'd be too dear, he said, for you, on your wages. He said, you want to get out into a village somewhere? So he said, there's a nice little village, Newland East, he said, it's got 2 bus services and a train. So that's where we went. I bought a little cottage, 2 rooms up, 2 rooms down. The water was at the front gate, and it cost me £400. And I borrowed my mum and dad's deeds for a deposit. So we lived there for about 6 years. Of course, we had Christine. Christine went to Newland East, School. In St. Newland East, we had we had the Church of England, and we had the Methodists. Church of England and the Methodists. And then the Church of England was a very famous model railway man in those days called Peter Denny. And he found out that I worked on the railway, and he had a great big model railway, and he asked me to go in to do the signalling. And I'd done the signalling. His wife was a Pakistani lady. Anyway, about 3 or 4 years on, he moved out of Newland East, and I got interested in model railways through him. And I was at a model railway exhibition some years later, and he turned up. He come up to me, and he was still good. Anyway, he's died now. He's passed away. So that's where we lived at Newland East. We had 2 buses, one to Newquay, one to Truro, and then if you walked down the hill, which was about 3/4 of a mile, you could get on the train to go to Newquay or go wherever you wanted to go. They had lots of things going on in this village. They had a silver band and all that sort of thing, and we had a nice shop that sold everything. There was a pub, there was a garage, there was a butcher's, all in this little village. But we lived there for about 6 or 7 years. No, yeah, it's about that. And then I got promotion, and I went to Par, and we had Margaret's sister's father-in-law's house at Lostwithiel. They wanted to move out there because it was too big, and that's how we went to Lostwithiel. So we was at Lostwithiel, and that's where Jeanette was born, Lostwithiel. And then some years later, the chief civil engineer was doing his yearly annual visit, and he said to me, he said, it's time we got into this modern signalling. He said, we're putting a panel box at Slough. He said, I'll put you down. You can, and that. So the next thing I know now, I've moved into Slough, and I went into the panel power signal box as a shift technician. So we were there for about I don't know, 5 or 6 years, and then he was building a panel box at Gloucester, and I had to say to Margaret about it. She said, "Wouldn't be a bad job. Actually, could go back to Gloucester." So when I hadn't seen him again, and I said, "You moved me once. How about me having a position at Gloucester?" He said, "Yes, if you want to go to Gloucester, you can." That's how we come back to Gloucester. we bought a brand new house in Churchtown, Andorra Way, and it cost us 4,200. It was 3 bedroom and a garage and a garden. It was brand new. It was, and then when we sold it, I think we sold it for about. I think we sold it for when Christine had already left. She'd gone to Australia, and Jeanette was leaving to get married. So we decided we wanted a bungalow, and that's how we got our bungalow we live in now. We've been living in this bungalow now for 31 years this year.
A long time to live in one place.
And so anyway, we put the house up for sale. No, I got it at 4,400. I think we sold it. It was 24,000. And we bought this bungalow, and it wasn't 24,000, a bit less than that. We had enough money that we could pay off the mortgage. We had no mortgage or nothing, and this bungalow now is valued roughly at 200,000.
Nice.
So you can tell how the price of houses have gone up in the years. And one thing, I do feel sorry for young people, because they haven't got an earthly chance of getting a house or anything really, you know. Mm. Of course, another thing with people today, against when we were first married, when we lived at Lostwithiel, we never had no washing machine. We had a boiler outside that we could put a fire underneath to do the boiling, and we had a mango. When I lived at Seaver Street, my mother would shout out, "Come on, son, turn the mango." And I'd have to turn the mango while she put the washing through. That was another thing we had to do in those days. We had no fridges, we had no cars, we had no televisions. All we had was the wireless.
Got it easy. Got it easy now, haven't we?
Well, no, you haven't. You haven't got it easy.
Wow.
You got it very hard, because you see, what you've got to understand, young man, is that you've got to buy all these things.
This is true.
Which I didn't. So when 1946, I started on the Great Western Railway. 1946, my wages was, in modern money, 95p. And if I worked a Sunday, I had another £1. So if I worked a Sunday, I'd draw £1.95, and that was the sort of wages we had. And of course, right after the war, another thing you youngsters don't understand, there was all these soldiers in the Air Force and Navy people came back. A lot of them, they all got married to their respective fiancées, but there was no houses. You could see say a flat advertised, and when you got ready, there might be 20 people queuing to try to get this flat, and that was it. And when we got married, Margaret and I, we lived with my mother in Seaver Street. We had the front room, and then of course it went on a bit. We did have a television, very very small black and white television. And one of the spectacular things was that in them days they used to show the horse jumping from Olympia, you know, the thing. And my stepdad, he was a big horseman. When they went over the jumps, he always went like that. And he'd sit watching the television, and every time and he'd go like that. But we had a very small, I think it was about a 9-inch television, black and white. It was, that's all we had. And we had no washing machines, no fridges, no dishwashers, nothing. Didn't have a car. And of course, we did have plenty of public transport in them days, which we haven't got now. Like you could just go down from Seaver Street, and the bus stop was down the bottom. You could jump on a bus and go up to Gloucester Cross. It was only a penny, only cost you a penny, and you could buy a newspaper. It was only a penny.
Can't get anything for a penny now, can you, Pete?
So you can see that life in them days for us we didn't need, well, we didn't have big wages anyway, but that was it, look. And when you went into the doctors, it wasn't all this paraphernalia you've got now. When we lived at Losswithy, the doctor was just down the road, and when you went in, he had a roll with a ticket on, and when you went in, you took the ticket off, and he knew what number. Like if the one before you was 27, you was 28. That's how he had no clerk or nothing. He just done it all himself. He's done his, but now it's a major job when you go to the doctors. All of it has been like when I'm in hospital, the nurses, all they're doing is writing. They're writing all the time, asking you questions, and we never had all that years ago.
Right, well, we'll have more another time. That was loads. So, say goodbye.
Goodbye. Thank you. Bye.